Most people think leadership is about giving orders. Here's a secret. It's not. Trust me. Yeah, real leadership, it's about taking responsibility for more than just yourself, especially your team, and do it in a way that people want to follow you. People will trust you. So today I'm going to go over, what I think is 11 good responsibilities that help you build trust as a leader. Now, whether you're leading a small team, you're a project leader, maybe it's the first time you've stepped into a leadership role, I truly believe these leadership responsibilities, they're going to shape how people see you, how they perform with you, and especially how they trust you. So first, let's talk about one key one: set direction. Now, a lot of people don't think that setting direction might be important, but it's critical. It's key. You got to explain where the team's going. You've got to tell the team why it matters. You got to turn big goals into clear priorities. You got to keep everyone aligned with things, especially when they get chaotic. People don't follow leaders, who are, vague. They follow leaders that give clarity. Next, let's talk about building the environment. And I'm not talking about the environment outside and all those things. I'm not going to go Greenpeace on you or scream global warming or all that good stuff. I'm talking about the environment that we work in. If you create norms for communications and you give good accountability, you remove obstacles, you protect the team from unnecessary noise. And when I say unnecessary noise, distractions in the workplace. A good leader knows how to buffer from maybe people above, maybe chaotic events that are going around. They step up when the team needs them, and they set the example, and they move it forward. Now, your team's performance, direct reflection of the leader, and especially the environment you create. You create a chaotic environment, you're going to have chaotic people in your team. You lead from the front, they're going to follow you. They're going to trust that you'll do it with them. And in some cases, maybe outperform them, and they want to perform better. And that leads me to the next topic: developing your people. I'm amazed that leaders will hold on to the grip so tight that they're afraid that in their absence, they don't have anybody to take their place. But I'm going to give you a clue. Someone can always take your place. It's guaranteed that there's always someone out there that can do it. So you've got to set up coaching strengths. Look at each individual in your team. You figure out their capabilities. You figure out their weaknesses. You should help them get rid of their weaknesses and increase their capabilities. Seems pretty common sense, right? That's what leaders should do. They should groom their replacement. Got to give honest, timely feedback. In some cases, you want to handle a situation on the spot. In other situations, you might wait, separate that individual from your team, and handle the difference then. It's a respect issue. And probably the biggest one, kind of hit on it before, growth. You've got to create opportunities for growth. People need to know that they can move up the ladder, no matter what it is. So once you've developed your people, your success will be measured by the growth of the people that are under you. Everybody wants to be the leader. They want to get the bonus. They want to look good. They want to be called out in front of their peers and in front of their coworkers when it's a good thing. When it's a bad thing, they don't. They don't want to take that responsibility. Well, part of your development of your people is showing them both sides of the coin. So when it's bad, you take the responsibility, you take the heat. When it's good, Let all that praise roll downhill. You get praise, you praise those below you. Works out better that way. Now, another critical one. Excuse me, you got to make a decision and you got to own that decision. You think about you're going to gather input, you're going to try not to get stuck, you're going to make a call, and when you do that, right or wrong, you own it. If you own that outcome, especially when it's bad, your team knows that they can trust you and that you will not throw them under the bus. That is key for us. We as leaders have to accept the responsibility of everyone that's under us, whether it's one person or whether it's hundreds of people. So, I think that is probably the biggest problem I saw, in the jobs I've had after leaving the military, especially at the Department of Veterans Affairs. Nobody wants to get in trouble. No one wants to lose their job. But they also all want to be leaders. But when something happens under them, they don't want to take that responsibility. And I think that's pretty bad. Now, right down that lane is you have to model the behavior you expect. If you come into work late, but then you get onto one of your team members for coming in late, why do you think they came in late? Because you set the example. Now, as a leader, you should always, now in the military, we always, as a staff NCO, staff non-commissioned officer, I was always in earlier than anyone in my shop. Because I thought, get there, get things squared away. Once everybody starts rolling in, normally go out on physical fitness, doing something like that. But I would never be late. If I was late, there better be something seriously wrong. Your team will marry you. And if you stay consistent by setting that example, they'll always try to, strive to achieve the model that you're giving them. Now, silence creates confusion. Clarity creates momentum. So how do we give clarity? We've got to communicate relentlessly. Communication is a critical factor in leadership. People are going to communicate down to you. You're going to communicate up to them. You're going to pass on information to your team. And if you do your job right, your team will pass information up to you. So you got to be constantly communicating with your team. You share context, not just instructions. Kind of goes along with my opening statement. Everybody thinks it's about giving orders. It's not about giving orders. You have to be prepared to explain the why. When someone asks a question, why you're asking them to do something. You can't say just because I told you so. That means that's their way of saying I'm unclear with the task you're giving me. So clear communications is critical. And keep it two-way. Yeah, I think that'd be the last part. I kind of already covered it with going down and then coming back up. Two-way communications, it's pretty key. Silence creates confusion. Clarity creates momentum. I said that at the beginning, right? And I guess, results. When you're driving results, you want to do it in a way that you don't burn your people out. If you're a hard individual and you expect nothing but perfection, you have to accept the fact that some people on your team might not be at your level of perfect. Now, I would venture to say, if you think you're perfect, probably not going to be the best leader. We all have flaws. Now, we have things we're good at, but we have flaws too. And sometimes our flaws come out when the people under us bring out those flaws. That's that two-way part. We can learn from the people below us, just like they can learn the skills and tasks from us. So as long as you prioritize, focus on specific outcomes, you know, balance urgency. Sometimes when it has to happen, you have to be quick. You have to drive them. But sometimes you can pull back off the throttle a little bit. And I'm not saying coast, and I'm not saying belittle your task, but you can step back a little bit and, not be so hard. High performance, it's not about squeezing harder or pushing harder. It's about keeping your team consistent and the momentum flowing. Now, there's a couple last few responsibilities I'd like to talk about, and I'll keep these quick. Psychological, I'm big on psychology. So, keeping psychology safe within your team members is critical. Now, that comes more the military side of me, so it's hard not to throw that in there. Everybody knows about PTS, or they know anxiety, depression. If your people feel safe to talk to you, if they know that they can challenge ideas, they're going to trust you. If your team sees you navigating complex problems, getting rid of conflict, they'll know that you'll make better decisions. Think systematically. Think outlined approach. If you think that way, you'll be able to compartmentalize information so that you can adjust on the fly, per se. Think about it. You're turning a wrench. You break a wrench. You get an extra wrench. You lose a socket. You have an extra socket. Think ahead a little bit. You really got to be able to shift and not let it throw you off and delay the task at hand. If you can see patterns, you can anticipate consequences, design better processes. And more importantly, if you can lead your team in a way that they can do it too, they're going to trust you. You give them the credit, they're really going to trust you. They're going to keep wanting to give ideas. There's always someone that might think about something a different way that can accomplish the task faster, better. So what if you don't think of it? So what if it's the first person on your team thinks about it? Doesn't matter. One team, one fight. And lastly, champion change. You think about today with artificial intelligence or 24/7 capability of gathering information. We can be prepared for anything. We don't have to react. Sometimes you do, but if you drive change, you might find yourself not reacting as much because you're ahead of the possibility or the probability of change. And that's key. Always be thinking ahead. Think of it like a chess match. If you do it that way, one, you'll get through problems quicker, but also you'll see things ahead. You'll be able to plan ahead, have a course of action 1, a course of action 2, a course of action 3. That's pretty key in leadership. Your team's doing a task, you're thinking on the next task. A flaw happens in the current task. Well, if you've already planned for multiple flaw possibilities, you'll be able to accomplish that and tell them what to do quicker. Common sense. So leadership, it's not just a title. It's your biggest responsibility. If you're in the position to be a leader, you are in charge of everything. And if you follow these 11 areas, these responsibilities, it's going to make you a better leader. It's going to allow people to follow you more. And most importantly, it's going to build their trust. And from my experience, especially 22 years in the Marine Corps, if your Marines or your people trust you, there ain't nothing they won't do for you. And in turn, there's nothing you won't do for them. One team, one fight. Now, if you made it this far, I appreciate it. You can look, I'll tag some of my latest videos on here if you want to watch those. You know, I appreciate you being here. If you want to follow me on X, SpankyGibson71. If you could like, subscribe, ring the bell, I truly appreciate it.